So our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's to look at boredom, that feeling we all try to avoid, right?
Absolutely. We see it as uncomfortable, restless.
Something you just got to fill instantly,
Yeah,
usually with the screen.
that's the default, isn't it? Eliminate the
It's
void.
what if? What if we've got it totally wrong? What if boredom isn't just, empty space?
What if it's actually useful, maybe even necessary?
Exactly. And these sources, they let us look at it from all these angles. Philosophy, psychology.
History, work life, it's fascinating stuff.
It really argues against that constant need for distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start at the beginning. What is boredom exactly? It feels kind of slippery. How do the sources define it?
Well, Sandy Mann, she is a psychology lecturer. She calls it a search for neural stimulation that isn't satisfied.
Okay. So your brain wants input.
Yeah, but it's not getting it in a way that works. So paradoxically, even though you feel understimulated, your brain activity actually increases. It gets agitated.
Ah, that explains that restless feeling, like you need to do something but don't know what.
Exactly. And then there's Pablo Dors, who writes about silence. He links it to something else.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He calls it dispersion.
Dispersion.
Yeah, being scattered,
Right.
being involved in too many things, but not really present in any of them.
So your attention is too thin.
Right. And that thinness leaves you feeling empty or bored, even if you're technically busy.
Wow. Okay. So too much stuff can actually lead to feeling bored or unengaged. That's interesting.
It is, isn't it?
Now, the sources also mention something called bore-out syndrome. That sounds similar, but different.
Yeah, it is different. The Wikipedia source talks about this. Bore out is more specific, usually work-related.
Okay.
It's a psychological disorder. Comes from mental underload.
Underload. So not enough challenge.
Yeah.
Exactly. A sustained lack of challenge, lack of interest in your job. It's not just a passing feeling.
And the source says it's serious. Like, it can make you physically ill.
It can. Physical illness, frustration, even a crisis of meaning or personal growth.
And people hide it, right? Because of the stigma.
Yeah, admitting you're under-challenged isn't easy. It's apparently less common in jobs with constant focus, like, say, a surgeon.
Right. Or something fulfilling like childcare.
Mm-hmm. And it might happen because others grab the interesting work, or just because the workplace is inefficient. It's chronic, different from just feeling bored for an afternoon.
Got it. So boredom as this unsatisfied search, boredom as dispersion, and then bore out as this chronic under-challenge.
Pretty much.
But here's the twist, right? The potential upside. Maybe boredom isn't just bad.
Right. Pablo Dors, he actually suggests boredom can be a doorway into meditation.
Really, because meditation can feel boring sometimes.
Oh, definitely, especially at first, just sitting there.
Mhm.
But he says it always comes out well, because the goal isn't excitement. It's just silent attention, learning to be with your own mind, even the boring bits.
Okay, that makes sense. It reminds me of what Psychology Today said about daydreaming and mind wandering.
They compare it to dreaming at night, right? It's how our minds process things during the day.
Yeah. And there's that psychologist, Jerome Singer.
Jerome Elsinger, yeah.
Yeah.
He talked about positive constructive daydreaming.
Positive constructive. What's that?
It's like playful mental downtime. Your imagination just explores future stuff.
Like planning a project or thinking about a dream job.
Exactly. It's not just random fuzz. It can be really creative and useful.
And that's the link, isn't it? Mind wandering, daydreaming. Sounds like a direct line to creativity.
It absolutely seems to be. Allowing yourself to just be bored can actually boost creative thinking.
How?
There's a study mentioned, I think, in the Inside Out Club source. They had people do a super tedious task,
Like what?
sorting beans by color.
Sorting beans. Okay, yeah. That qualifies as boring.
Totally. But the people who did the boring bean sorting, they performed better on a creative task afterwards.
Better than people who did something interesting.
Yeah, better than those who did an engaging activity first.
Wow. So being bored actually primed them, made their brains more ready for creativity.
That seems to be the idea. The boredom pushed their minds inward into that daydreaming state.
Creating mental space.
Right, space for new connections away from constant focus or entertainment.
It makes sense that writers would get this, like Anne Enright.
Yeah, the novelist. She calls boredom a productive state, even a very good sign she waits for.
And Agatha Christie. She credited boredom for her writing.
Said growing up without much formal schooling forced her to entertain herself. Nothing like boredom to make you write.
It's like the quiet before the storm of ideas.
Yeah, it fits with Csikszentmihalyi's creative process steps, preparation, incubation.
Incubation, that's where boredom fits maybe, while ideas are churning under the surface.
Exactly, before the aha moment.
And speaking of Six Cent Mahali, this idea of less distraction, it also connects to his flow state, right?
Totally. Flow is that deep absorption in a task,
Right.
right? Where the challenge meets your skills perfectly.
Yeah, that feeling of being in the zone.
Well, studies, like the one in the Theseus source, suggest that blocking distractions, especially digital ones, leads to deeper focus. And that means more potential time and flow.
So less noise outside helps you find that focused state inside.
Precisely. Which leads to better work, more innovation. It's kind of paradoxical.
It really is. Which brings us to the big challenge today. If boredom can be so good, why is it so hard to find?
Oh, it's our devices, isn't it? Psychology Today, Jot Form. They all point to it.
Constant stimulation, just a tap away.
Yeah, you never have to be bored for more than a second.
Pablo Dors has that really strong quote, "Noise is the real terrorism."
It's a powerful. And that constant digital noise, the notifications, the pings, it overloads our brains. The Inside Out Club source mentions this too.
And those notifications, especially the text ones, Slack, email pushes, they actually harm creativity.
The Theseus study links them directly. Negative impact on creative performance, plus more stress, more burnout.
That's a huge issue for workplaces, trying to balance staying connected with, not frying everyone's brains.
It's a real tightrope walk. Because just cutting notifications without thinking it through...
It might make people anxious about missing stuff.
Exactly. It needs a cultural shift, not just a tech fix.
So, okay, how do we fight back? How do we make space for this valuable quiet, this boredom?
Well, the idea of a digital detox comes up a lot. Birkenstock, Theseus.
Right. But it's not about ditching tech entirely.
No, not necessarily. More about finding healthier ways to use it, being more intentional.
And the benefits are less stress, feeling recharged.
Yeah, lowering stress, getting some emotional space back, feeling calmer overall. Stepping away lets your mind recover.
Okay, so practically speaking, what can you actually do? Any tips from the sources?
Lots of good ones. First, figure out why you want to unplug. Set an intention.
Okay, makes sense.
Then, schedule device-free time every day. Maybe meals, or the hour before bed, or during exercise.
Or even a whole day off pick, like a weekend day.
Yeah, a 24-hour reset can be really powerful.
And find things to do that aren't mentally taxing.
Right, like taking a walk on a route you know really well.
Yeah.
Or lifting weights, or just sitting, eyes closed, let the mind wander.
Inside Out Club and Jotform mention those. They disconnect you, let things surface.
Exactly. And Jotform also suggested building pauses into work. A quiet room, maybe. Encouraging walks.
Especially dull walks, right? Because that helps the mind wander.
Another work tip. Do the boring tasks first.
Oh, yeah. Why?
To build up pent-up creativity. So when you switch to the creative stuff, you're eager. You're ready.
Huh. Interesting. And connect with people offline.
Yeah. Tech-free meals, board games, or even just tell a friend you're trying to unplug more. Accountability helps.
It all comes back to Dior's and silence, doesn't it?
It really does. He sees silence itself as therapeutic. Yeah. Helps you find yourself. Transforms reality even. A saving presence.
You need internal and external quiet for that kind of connection.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to look back at history, too, like that Reddit source did. Maybe a bit speculative, but moments where boredom or just lack of activity might have played a role.
Oh, yeah. Those were fascinating.
Yeah.
Like Fleming and penicillin.
His messy lab. And being on vacation.
Right. Sort of. Productive laziness, maybe, allowed the mold to do its thing. Though we have to mention Duchesne, who saw similar stuff earlier but got ignored.
True. And the pyramids, built partly because farmers were idle during the floods.
Yeah. Surplus labor with nothing to do thanks to better farming, and cats protecting the grain.
Cats, who knew? And Linus Pauling figuring out the DNA helix.
While bored in bed with a cold, just thinking.
And Albert Speer in prison, mapping a walk around the world in his head.
20 years is a long time to be bored.
Definitely.
Right.
And Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein.
Because they were all bored during a rainy summer. That year without a summer. A writing competition born of sheer boredom.
Amazing. Those seem pretty direct. The source also mentioned bigger things like Henry VIII, WWI, the French Revolution.
Yeah, suggesting boredom or frustration might have been one factor among many, many others. Much more complex, obviously.
Right, not a simple cause and effect.
Yeah.
So let's pull back to Dors again, that deeper philosophical angle, boredom as a path to yourself.
Yeah, he frames meditation as this pilgrimage inwards,
Yeah.
moving away from that discouragement, finding unity.
Becoming aware of your own mind, your body.
Right. And he admits it can be scary because you're seeing ourselves as we are. No filters, no distractions.
That takes courage, for sure.
And then he makes that incredible link, quoting Simone Weil, love is as much as being attentive.
Say more about that.
He argues that what you truly pay attention to, that's what you love. So practicing attention, like in meditation, actually builds your capacity to love, to give and receive it, to help and be helped. It fights self-centeredness.
Wow. So attention isn't just about focus. It's care. It's love.
That's his take. He contrasts it with our culture of addition, always adding more experiences, more knowledge.
You're right.
He thinks true culture is more like subtraction, like tending a garden, cultivating your inner self.
And our current culture pushes dispersion, making attention and care harder.
That's his concern. Promoting care humanizes us.
And his final thought, that this capacity for contemplation, this mystical vocation, is universal.
Yeah, that we're all called to it. That deep connection is available to everyone.
Maybe starting in those quiet moments we usually run from.
Maybe so.
So, okay, we started this deep dive thinking boredom is just bad, a negative space.
Right, something to fill immediately.
But looking through all this, wow, it can be a trigger for creativity, a door to daydreaming, maybe even flow.
And potentially a training ground for meditation, for deeper self-awareness.
Yeah. In this world that's always on, always connected, maybe intentionally allowing boredom, finding silence, getting less stimulation.
It might be more crucial than ever for our sanity, our creativity.
Our ability to actually connect with ourselves, with others. So the final thought for you listening, given all this potential hidden in stillness, in that lack of noise, what ideas, what insights, what self-discoveries might you be missing out on by constantly avoiding boredom? How could you maybe build just a few moments of that quiet disconnection into your own life?